All right. What is it? It's Thursday?
Thursday.
Yes.
Thursday,
Happy
yes.
Thursday.
Hi, everyone.
Yes. Welcome to Women on Words with Siera London, Michele Ingrid, and Jacki Renee. All right. So this is the Backlist Book Club, and we're a little off schedule, but we're glad to be here with you tonight. So we are going to be discussing Kennedy Ryan's The King Maker. Michele is holding up the book with this beautiful, very sensual cover. And she is also going to be reading the blurb for us. I do want to throw in that tonight's show is sponsored by Lunchtime Chronicles Season 5. We're already doing our cover reveals. So pop on over to Lunchtime Chronicles with Messy Mandy every day this week at 2 p.m. for the cover reveals. And the season kicks off August 3rd. So, Michele, take it away with the reading of the blurb.
Okay. The Kingmaker. Power, passion, betrayal. Raised to rule, bred to lead, and weaned on a diet of ruthless ambition. In a world of haves and have-nots, my family has it all, and I want nothing to do with it. My path takes me far from home and paints me as the black sheep. At odds with my father, I'm determined to build my own empire. I have rules, but Lennix Hunter is the exception to every one of them. From the moment we meet, something sparks between us, but my family stole from hers, and my father is the man she hates most. I lied to have her and would do anything to keep her. Though she tries to hate me too, the inexorable pull between us will not be denied, and neither will I. The Kingmaker.
Oh, okay. So I am just going to start by saying I love this book's opening. So the book opens with us
Yes.
meeting Lennix at a very young age. And she is actually going through really her coming of age ceremony for an Apache woman. What did you all think about the opening where you meet Lennix and her mother and other members of her family that are celebrating this very detailed, very culturally significant ceremony and what it means to her and how it shapes her? Jacki, you want to kick us off?
I think the opening sets the foundation for the entire storyline, honestly, because it's about family, it's about traditions, and it's culture, just all woven into like this amazing story. So I think
Yeah.
and I loved this book so much so that as soon as I was done, I went and listened to the second book and listened to that in one sitting. But like I said, the opening just sets the foundation for her, our understanding of why she's so grounded and centered and strong, because it is rooted in her traditions and her family and her
Yes.
relationships too. Yes.
Yes,
So
very
yeah.
much so. I felt like this author did such a great job of us of establishing Lennix Moon Hunter as a heroine. And you get to see her
Mhm.
with her mother on this very significant day. And in preparing for this ceremony, you literally have to train for a run where you're literally connecting with the land and your spirit. And it infuses like who you are, all these characteristics of who you should be as you grow into womanhood. And you meet Lennix and her mother, and you learn that her mother is an activist and her father is a professor, and her parents
Mhm.
aren't married, but they're both there with her and they're very proud of her and her aunt. And Michele, what was your take meeting Lennix Moon Hunter on this day where her family is teaching her the importance and the responsibility of being an Apache woman and what that means for her, how that shapes her as an adult?
So first and foremost, it felt very much like I was peeking in on something I shouldn't be allowed to see. It's very much as the thing I love about it, it's open to this entire community. It's this ceremony is so important. The entire community is involved. It is,
The
like you
reservation.
said, she is trained for this, but it also felt very much like I was looking into a space I shouldn't be in. So I was already like dragged in that moment, like, oh my gosh, this is just like, we all have our traditions. And this was an opportunity to see how someone else's traditions are born. And I have to admit, in the opening of the book, Kennedy Ryan thanks her advisors. And I have to go ahead and I'm going to thank her advisors again, because there was something very beautiful and solemn and touching about being allowed into this very protected space and moment. And I even more appreciated the fact that I read somewhere that a lot of people said she got it right. Like she got advisors who helped her get it right. And so there was that sense of, yes, I'm peeking in, but I'm peeking in a reverence to the fact that this is exactly how it should be told. So I was charmed immediately. And I did a tandem read. I started the book on paper. I tend to do this because I like to remember. I remember it differently if I have that opportunity to see the words before I hear them. So, so it's beautiful. Absolutely. I was completely drawn in. And can we establish that you guys won't throw too many spoilers out? Because I just got the library's copy of book 2.
Yes, no, we're not going to throw a lot of spoilers out about book 2.
No,
but know
my physical copy has not gotten here yet, and my library Kindle, because I had all 3 copies while we were reading. Just so you know, I had the audio book, the physical book, and the Kindle books I could read wherever I was.
Yeah. It's a story. And I must say, I haven't read a lot of books that showed Native American life or like life on the reservation. And like you said, that sense of community and the cultural significance, and that continues throughout the book. And then we meet, the book jumps time. So I'm going to say that it's written in a part 1, part 2, and part 3. And so I want to say Lennix is maybe 13 when the book opens. And then we see Lennix again at 17. And we learn that on the day of her ceremony, her mom actually went to a protest and is never found again. She never returns home. And so it's just Lennix and her father from this point forward in the book. And Lennix talks about she just wished, thinking back to, is it her sunrise ceremony? Thinking back to her sunrise ceremony, the things she wished she had done or said to her mom if she would have known that was the last time she would see it.
To leave.
Right. And then we see Lennix at 17, and she is an activist, much like her
powerhouse.
mother.
Yes.
At 17.
At 17. Yes.
And I don't want to give too much away, but it's a theme that we've seen play out in reality, where you have protected lands promised to Native American tribes, and you have big, powerful businesses that have targeted that land for pipelines and development and other things. And so this is where we come in.
Let us say it right. Not lands promised to, but lands belonging to.
You're right.
The indigenous people of that area that is then compromised and stolen. So let's be really clear. This is a state of ownership that has been, okay.
Yes. Thank you for that correction, because you're
I just want to be clear so the audience knows.
Yeah. Forever lands that are now being encroached upon. And so Lennix is leading the protest at 17. That's significant. I
Mhm.
want you to remember it because it speaks to who she is. And even though her mom is no longer in her life, her mom very much shaped who she is and
Yes.
how she views the world and how she
Yes.
perceives the world, um, views women who look like her, girls from
Mhm.
the reservation. Okay. And you'll hear that in
Yes.
the book if you read the book or listen to the book. And then we meet our hero on this very same day of Lennix protest. We meet Maxim
Mhm.
Kingsman Cade. Michelle, what was your thought of your first introduction to Maxim? And you meet him also with his family, with his father.
Mhm.
He's delicious.
Okay.
He's okay. So, can I tell you what I love about this hero? And I might be jumping in saying this. I love the fact that this hero comes from a lot of money, a lot of power, a lot of influence, and he is not in agreement with the way that that power,
Mhm.
influence, and money is used. And he's not just the
Mhm.
guy who says, this is nice money and I disagree with you, but I'm going to use it. This is a man who tells you right up front that he has been living off of an inheritance he got from his grandparent because he's not using his daddy's money to educate himself.
Yes.
He's using this inheritance, and
Mhm.
that's really important to him. And he doesn't just speak it, he believes in the
Believes it.
idea that if he is going to make a change in the world, that he is going to do it under the same priorities that he believes in. And then he does,
Mhm.
y'all, a man of his word. Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
Yes.
Jackie,
I like the fact that the way Kennedy Ryan wrote Maxim was that he was already there. He did not, Lennox did not have to teach him to be a better person, to be better than
true.
his father, to have different views than his father, to challenge his
Yeah.
father. He was already there. And I think for me, the most profound part of that chapter was when Lennox was standing on that mound of dirt saying, "Can you see me? Can you hear me?" Because not only was she speaking for herself, it mirrored in what Maxim was saying to his dad. Same
Absolutely.
context, different words.
Yeah.
And I thought
Yeah.
Yes.
that was beautiful. That
Yeah.
really, right there, just really captured me and kept
Hmm.
me grounded in the story. So, yes,
Yes.
Maxim, yes. I wish there were more Maxims out there.
So I'll tell you this. It's rare sometimes when I read a book that I love the hero and the heroine equally. And this book, the
Hmm.
way Kennedy Ryan crafted the hero and the heroine, the way they come on the page, so very strong in their convictions,
Mhm.
is just awe-inspiring. Literally, I was like, why am I writing books? After I read like the first couple of chapters, when I could just stay home and read Kennedy Ryan books.
Yes.
But so Maxim is on his father's basically private jet. His dad got money, y'all. And his dad brings Maxim to this scene, this pipeline protest, with a purpose in mind, a purpose that he knows Maxim would never support. But
Mhm.
his dad is that guy. He is that guy, that rich, obnoxious, kind of uber wealthy guy,
Entitled. Mhm.
entitled, that you literally do not want to meet on the street because he would tell you to get out of his way, little person. And his dad
Mhm.
very much looks at Lennox and her people that way. Get out of my way. Like, what is these people's problem? This pipeline will bring jobs. He thinks nothing about culturally this tribal land, burial grounds, the significance of this land to Lennox and her community. It's all about, well, I know what's best, and this pipeline is what's best, and I'm telling you how it will benefit you, and you need to take that and shut up.
Can we
And
talk about that? Can we talk
yes,
about can we talk about the fact that there's a point where Lennix makes a point of saying that the pipeline could have been run through another community, a newer community, but the people there had so much money they simply said no.
no,
And that was
No.
it. And then it was
that
like,
was
okay,
it.
we want to disturb the tribal community and we're going to potentially damage their water supply. But
Yes,
yeah, just no. And I was
yes,
like, wow.
yes.
Wow.
So while one community can say no, the other community
Another
has to
community.
hold protest after protest after
And it's
protest.
bulldozed.
And guess what? The cops are on the scene, and who are they attacking? They're attacking the
The
people
protesters.
who legally own the land,
The people
right?
who probably
But
pay the taxes. Mm-hmm,
yes,
mm-hmm,
but this is a very political move, very calculated on Maxim's father's part. And Lennix
mm-hmm.
already has very strong feelings about Warren Cade.
Oh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. She
That's
hates
Maxim's
him.
father. She has very strong feelings, negative
So let's go back
feelings.
to how our couple meets.
Yes.
Let's go
So
back
his
to where
dad
they
flies
meet.
him in because he wants his support. And Maxim listens and he sees Lennix Moon Hunter because that's how she
Mm-hmm.
says her name.
Mm-hmm.
I am Lennix
Mm-hmm.
Moon Hunter.
Lennox
And she
Hunter.
says it with such conviction. It actually reminded me of when I was a young woman, when apartheid was still in place, and you would see
Mm.
videos that says, I am like Nelson Mandela. Like it's
Mm-hmm,
just
mm-hmm,
that powerful.
mm-hmm.
The way she's
Mm-hmm.
standing on this mount, um, fighting for her people, for their land. And Maxim sees her and he really sees her. He really hears her. He hears
Mm-hmm.
the passion.
Mm-hmm.
He hears her conviction and he's moved by it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And then the dogs come.
And the pepper spray and the gas,
And
the
the mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
The tear
yeah,
gas, yeah.
the tear
Mm-hmm.
gas.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm sorry, I'm out of words. Yes.
Yeah. And
And
so
he
they
does the
meet.
right thing.
Yes, he does. He steps in to protect her. I'm not going to tell you how, but he steps in to protect her. And they all get hauled off to what my mother calls the clink. So they all get hauled off to the clink to jail. Clink, clink. So, so they all get hauled off to the clink. And Maxim has on now. Remember where we are, and Maxim is obviously he looks the part of where he's from. He has on a T-shirt, and it has the name of his university emblazoned
Mm-hmm.
across. And what do you think the assumption is? What do you think about Lennix's assumption about Maxim being there, Jackie?
Um, she automatically thinks he's there in support of their cause because he is from California and he goes to Arizona.
His dad
And
takes
so she
him to
doesn't
Arizona.
to Arizona, right? But she does not know that. She thinks
You're
he
right.
came all the way from California in support of their cause in Arizona. But also, what I would like to point out too is yes, he jumped out of the back of the truck to go protect Lennix, but also in the clink, she does something very bold. Talking real mad to to the law enforcement officer, like, these people are injured. If you don't get them some help or some first aid,
Right.
I'm gonna do this, that, and this. Even locked up, this
Yes.
young 17-year-old woman was
Yeah.
still fighting. You could
Yes.
not silence her voice, and that's what I loved so much
Yes.
about Lennix. Her
Yes.
voice, she used it anytime, every time, and it could not be silenced, no
Yes.
matter the situation.
Yes, very much so. So, what did you think about the decision that Maxim made, Michelle, to conceal how he got to the protest and the real reason he was brought there?
He's a good thing. It's a good thing he a good guy because this is the moment. Like when from the moment they meet, he is keeping secrets. He does not mention his name, and
Yeah.
there's one very okay. So let's talk. I need to go back and talk about the fact that this couple has instant attraction to each other. And the first
Yes.
time they meet, they're talking, and he asks her how old she is. And she says 17. And he's like, whoop, this is too young. Because he's a graduate student.
Yes.
And he is, if I did the math right, he's 7 years older than her.
I believe so.
So, yes, I think he's 7 years older than her. And so this whole idea that this 17-year-old girl who is beautiful and sexy and the whole nine, he's like, okay. So he got brownie points from me for the fact that he knew I could look not too closely and I should never touch.
Yes, that is true.
Yeah, so he kind of positioned himself as a good guy from the very beginning. And I did appreciate that. And I thought that whole thing where she's kind of like in charge of everything, but you have like the elders in the community kind of like peeking in, like, your daddy is going to find out that you're out here. Like all of these like pseudo threats while, she's kind of taking control of the situation. I was very enamored with that. She's a very forceful character. I cannot recall the last time.
Yes.
Like I believe in strong heroines. I read strong heroines, but she carries a different level of strength with her. And I will admit that one of the things that captivated me about this book is, one, she's extremely strong. Two, he's this adamant, hero who is, reluctant to use his father's power, and he very much forces it away. And then we're also in the midst of a story that's somewhat political. I know there probably some people are like, this is too political. I thought that she walked that line really well.
Yeah, very fine line.
Very well.
Yeah.
Very well. But again, you bring up an excellent point, Michelle, because 2 points I want to make. So Maxim, again, they are uber wealthy. This ain't a little bit. Like there's a point in the story where he tells another CEO, I could buy you 10 times over. Okay.
This is oil and gas money.
Yes. So his father is literally an oil baron. And I don't even know if they call him that anymore either. But they have money. And you said, he doesn't use his father's power, but he does in a different way. He very much operates in his privilege, in my opinion.
He understands how to use that level of power.
He does. I agree that Maxim is compassionate, but he's a compassionate capitalist. And
he makes no
but he admits to to being a capitalist. He does.
I'm a monetize it. I'm gonna do the
like,
right thing, but I'm a monetize it.
Yeah.
Right. He does want to save the world, but
I'm gonna make my money while I'm doing it.
That you need to buy from him to save the world. So there is that. But, Kennedy has done such a great job of crafting a 17-year-old female alpha to go up against a 24-year-old wealthy male alpha, white male alpha, and a 17-year-old Native American Apache Indian woman. Like, just such an amazing job with these characters. And I may be missing something about what Lennix said about herself. So I want to jump forward because they have this time together in the clink. They locked up. And they have such a strong connection that they literally do not forget one another. Like when Michelle says instant connection, is that. And then the book jumps forward in time. And Lennix is no longer jailbait.
She's 21.
And she's 21. And she's graduated from college. And you see her and her girlfriends on a trip in Amsterdam, of all places. In Amsterdam.
Can I show you guys something?
Yes.
I don't know if you guys, any of you have the physical book, but they have these beautiful openings for the chapters. So this is chapter 1 when we are back in
Oh,
Arizona and you
wow.
see, right? And then when they get to Amsterdam, that is denoted.
Yes, with pictures from there. And
Oh,
Yeah,
Amsterdam is
it's
so very
absolutely
wow.
beautiful.
beautiful the way that they
Yeah.
did this book. I was so charmed by that. I'm sorry. Please go ahead.
Yes. So again, so this is a book that's written in parts, and you meet the hero meets the heroine when she's underage the first time they meet. And then the second time they meet, they remember each other. And I feel like they almost had a second meet cute in this book. And it was a more typical one because it's in a bar. So what did you think about the bar scene where you're like, I got friends, you got friends. So she got her friends and he got his
Oh, he
friends,
got his
and
friend.
they're in the bar. Y'all remember that, Chris Brown? I got friends, you
Yeah,
got friends.
he got
They hop
this.
out and you
Yeah.
hop in.
Yeah.
Yes. So
Yeah.
Michelle, what did you think about the second meet cute between Lennix
I think
and
his mouth
Maxim? And they
falls
grown
open when
now.
he sees her, right?
He says
Mm-hmm.
Lennix
Doesn't
Moon
his mouth fall open when he
Hunter.
sees her? Yes,
Yes.
like
Yes.
he's like all of a sudden it's like, oh my God, like like at that moment where you think there's something that you've never gonna see again or nothing gonna happen
Yes.
again, and it happens, and you're like, he's not forgotten her. I think he goes like zips across the room to her when the
His
moment he like stops mid sentence with his friends to go check her out because they're
Well, the
like
girls noticed him
deciding.
first,
Well,
remember?
they
Yes,
The girls
yes.
noticed
yes.
the guys. They was like,
Notice.
okay, don't look. But over there, like at 2 o'clock, maybe 2:15, like
Uh-huh.
I see some hard is. And so
But
they
the
see
guys
each
were
other.
checking them out too. The guys were
Yes.
checking them out and divvying them up too. And that's when Maxim notices her. But okay,
Yep.
let's go a little bit because there is another strong relationship that happens in this book, and it's between Lennix and Lennix's
Her mom's
best
sister?
mom's best friend. I
Mira,
Mm,
thought she
Aunt
was her best
Mira,
yeah.
friend, Mira. Yeah, Aunt
her
Mira. But
her mom's best friend.
Friend, yeah.
right,
Mhm.
so before even before this Amsterdam trip, you meet Aunt Mira, who is
Mhm.
so down to earth, so encouraging, but so open, so
Yes.
unlike, those mother figures that we are used to seeing in the books.
Mhm.
She's encouraging Lennix to
Mhm.
experience life
Explain
because
Yeah.
even
girls.
at 2020, at 21, Lennix, yes, she's done some things in terms of being intimate with someone, but she has
But she's
never had
technically still
sex.
a
So
virgin.
she is technically still a virgin. And
Right.
everybody's teasing her about it, but she is comfortable with that.
Yes. Yes.
She is very comfortable and very selective, and I am so proud of her for being that way. So when she meets Maxim again, she's like, okay,
You know
maybe there's a reason why.
what I liked about her, it because this is significant. She really wasn't like, she was like, yes, he's the one that I want. And that's what I liked about Lennix. She was just as sure-footed at 22 as she was at 17. Like she
Mhm.
hasn't seen, she met Maxim once in the clink, all right, once. And then they meet up again in Amsterdam by happenstance. And she sees him and she knows that he's the man that she wants to share this very, very special
Mm-hmm.
gift with, and that's her body.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mhm.
I love that because they both knew that this was going to happen. Like once they saw each other again, like
Mm-hmm.
there's no like, should we,
Yeah.
shouldn't we? They're like, this gonna happen at some point while we're here.
Yeah. Well, I
Yes.
Because
think she
even he
warns him
said,
that first night, right?
Yeah. Yes. Yes. She
yeah, but
knew.
even he said when he saw her, again, he was like, "Oh, she's not jailbait anymore."
Right,
Right.
right.
Yeah,
But it
like
wasn't.
I can
But
act on this attraction now.
right. I think that's what made it so moving, because it didn't feel like a hookup.
Mhm.
It felt like
Mhm.
there was a pause put on them while
Mhm.
they were in that cell. And then this is a
Right.
continuation. And I know that's not realistic, because it's not like they ever saw each other again or they talked, or she didn't even
Right.
know his last name, y'all. She didn't know his last
Right.
name from way
Didn't
back
know
when
his
she,
name, period. She didn't
yeah,
know his name, period.
yeah.
She's the only one who introduced herself. And by now, he's not even going by Maxim,
She knows
by
his first
Maxim
name.
Cade. He,
She didn't know his last
yeah,
name, but she knows his
last
name is
name.
Maxim.
Okay. Exactly.
Yeah. And so
And
she's
he's
like, I
not
don't
even
even know your
going by
last name.
Cade.
And that's when
Okay,
he told her
yeah.
Kingsman, because
Kingsman. Right.
Lennix is so, she has so much disdain for his father, that literally while they're in the jail cell, she mentions his
Mhm.
father's name. So he
Mhm.
knows to stick
Mhm.
to his first name.
He's the villain. He's the
Yeah,
definite villain.
he's the villain.
Mhm.
And
Right.
I want
But
to explore this.
even in his
Jackie.
breakaway from even in his breakaway from his father, because he's not even going by Cade in Amsterdam. They're all calling him Kingsman.
I
He
know.
dropped the Cade. So
I
he's
know.
just really establishing himself as his own man, separate from his father.
And
Yeah.
y'all, his family's so highfalutin that all the son's middle name is Kingman. Like, what the what? Like,
For generations. Yeah. Everybody's middle name is Kingsman.
Yes.
I thought that
Yeah.
was interesting too, but I get it. I get it because I well
There's
no,
a
because I also
tradition.
think about
Yeah.
the fact that in the civil rights movement, even before the civil rights movement was fully started,
Mhm.
um African American people named their sons significant titles so that they would be referred to by those titles.
That
And
is right.
so I
Mhm.
thought it was interesting his father gives them this Kingman middle name that's like everybody's middle name.
Yes. And I obviously was given to his father. So this is a generational name. It's not something that his father
Mhm.
started,
Mhm.
right? So
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
came before them.
Yeah.
So for me, I actually loved their time in Amsterdam together.
Oh,
Um,
so beautiful.
we
The
it
writing is so
was it was it was
beautiful.
it was like a
Mhm.
whirlwind romance, y'all. Like their time in Amsterdam could have been a romance
Mhm.
book all by itself, but
Yes.
there's a but for me. I
Okay.
and I know it's fiction, but I was so disappointed when Maxim did not delve into who he really was. And I know the book would have ended if he has, because Lennix would have slapped his face. But I was a little on the struggle bus, because she is digging him, even though he's like, we
Mhm.
only have a short amount of time here, but she's
Mhm.
feeling
Mhm.
him on a much deeper level.
Mhm.
And then you have a character who's virginal, and you're the man that she wants to share her body with, and she doesn't really know you. I mean, of
Mhm.
course, she recognizes things about you, because her and her
Mhm.
friends are staying in a hostel. Y'all, what y'all think about the little place that Maxim was staying in on that little bitty inheritance he had?
What little bitty place?
I think it's
Exactly.
nicer than my place, and I got a
Exactly.
job. I work for a living and been doing what I do for a long time, and it was nicer than my place. I'm like,
It's breathtaking, y'all. The place
I'm
that
Yes.
like,
he's staying in
yeah,
with the little
yeah,
bit of money he got from his
yeah.
grandparents, because he
It
said
might
he
not have
don't
been that
have
little.
much
I got
money.
questions.
So I'm
He
just
may
gonna
not have
tell you
much
this.
money compared to his daddy.
So Maxim
Exactly.
got more money than probably all of us on this podcast put together. But compared to his daddy, he tells Lennox,
He's
I don't
broke.
have much money. And he's living in a fabulous place while her and her three college roommates are in a hostel. I'm trying to tip the scale so y'all see what we're dealing with when we talk about Maxim
Mhm.
Kingsman and Lennix Moon Hunter, even as a graduate with three friends throwing in on the bag. Okay, a hostel
Okay.
And then
Mhm.
And he's staying
Maxim
by himself, right?
in a room
His
front house.
buddies ain't staying with
Yes.
him. Yeah.
Mm-mm,
Mhm.
mm-mm,
Mm-mm.
no. So yeah, we talking the difference between apples and diamonds, not even apples and oranges, apples and diamonds.
Yes. Yes.
So they
Mhm.
had this amazing time together. And now I'm going to jump into Lennix as, a fully fleshed out woman starting her career. So Lennix gets a call while she's there and she has a choice to make. Michelle,
Mhm.
what do
She
you
gets
think about
offered
this?
the opportunity to work on a campaign for an indigenous, a member of the indigenous community who is running for the House. And she realizes that this might be the opportunity of a lifetime. And it wasn't an opportunity that was even sitting on her plate when she left for Amsterdam. She had
Right.
3 choices,
Mhm.
and this was not even one of them. And then I think it's her Aunt Mina calls her and tells her
Mhm.
about this
Mhm.
opportunity. And that sends her running. And I wanted to note that I believe, is that part 3 where part 3 starts? Because then we move into the Washington, D.C. pictures phase. I love the way they did this book. I can't lie. The words were supreme. First of all, I need to go back a little bit so that we could just touch on the love scene.
Oh my goodness.
Um, So Kennedy Ryan has a tendency to write with words that are sprinkled into the vernacular and dictionaries all over the place, but somehow when they come together for her, they do different things than
I'm
they do for the
telling you.
rest of us. I
I
Mhm.
won't lie,
know.
I read that scene and I was like, that, first of all, even if your first time was the worst time, she would have probably made it beautiful with the words.
Yeah.
So it was gorgeous.
That's
It
how
was
good it was.
It was so good. Like I just had that moment where I'm like, oh my
Yes.
gosh, like this is
Yes.
the language is going. I mean, we're already in a situation where it feels like these two people who are destined to be with
Yes.
each other are going to make love for the first time. And then she writes a scene that is like 4th of July, New Year's Eve, and
Yes.
all of
Yes.
that rolled into one. It's in this magical city,
Right.
in this
Mhm.
apartment he shouldn't be able to afford. And like, it was just wow. And then he's like, I'm going off to Antarctica, and girlfriend sent him off right. Like,
That's after I read it. A very long drag.
Yes.
come on, did you
Yes.
not like
I
have that
think
moment
all
where
of
like
their,
I read the
for
love scene,
me,
I had to
all
like, I
of
gotta
their
put this book down for
like
a minute
that.
and think.
Yes, it's the type of love
For me,
scene that
all of
you're
their
like,
scenes were like that. Yeah.
yes, it is
Yes,
so
yes,
hot and
true,
so
true.
sensual. You're like, you
It's
know what?
sexy.
I don't need to
Mhm.
It's
read this no
sexy.
more to somebody in the house who willing to do some things with me. Like I literally don't need to read this anymore. So it was just that hot.
And,
Like, do
and we
not
just have
read
to
this.
say her
Mhm.
writing
Mhm.
is so like she is I mean, they're people that we call wordsmiths. There might be word witches. I'm trying to figure out what is the language that I would create to describe the
Mhm.
way that she draws the language to like she uses like she serenades the language into a way where the words just like if you saw them, they might make music for you.
She
It's
is a
so
master
the
storyteller.
Yeah.
so
I
good.
think
I
there's
was
I
a
say
part.
Kennedy Ryan
captivated.
is a master storyteller.
She is.
She has
She is.
ruined me.
Yes, there's a part in there I think where Lennix said if kisses had a color, she told me what color Maxim's kissing would be. I saw him. I saw it, and I wasn't even being protest. I saw the color. That's what I want to say. I saw the colors.
Oh man.
And Maxim, I
Yeah.
appreciate you. I appreciate you.
Mhm.
I do. I appreciate how good you are to Lennix. And
Oh
then
yes.
what I loved about Lennix too, y'all, when she had this choice between staying with this man who she very much wants, who she very much desires, and for this, but it's temporary, and this career opportunity, I love that she chose the career.
Yes.
I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I was happy that she didn't say, you know what,
Yeah.
let me stay one more day. Let me do
Mm-mm.
this. Let me do that. No. And yeah, she did. And
I
sometimes
love it.
I think, sometimes as women, I think we're taught to struggle with that a little bit. Like if you have the choice between leveling up in a relationship, like the right thing to do is to choose your relationship, even though there's no commitment. And I love
Right.
that we didn't see that particular trope kind of play out, because we do tend to
Mm-hmm.
see that a lot, even in fiction works, that,
Mm-hmm.
a character, a female character,
Yeah.
will
Mm-hmm.
choose her romantic interest
Relationship.
over,
Mm-hmm.
yes, over her own like self-interest and
Mm-hmm.
independence. And I appreciate that Lennix chose a different path.
For
And
me,
y'all,
it would have been out of character for her to
Mm-hmm.
choose the
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
relationship based on the foundation the opening set. Remember,
mhm.
she
Mm-hmm.
said how tired she was, training and how her knees
Mm-hmm.
ached,
Mm-hmm.
but she
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
still did it because that was a
Mm-hmm.
part of who she is as a person.
Yes.
So if she had
Yes.
chosen to stay one more day, even though Maxim had already told her up front, this
Yeah.
right, and he did the like back and forth between us, this right here is just for this week or this time because I'm
Right.
going to
He was
Antarctica.
very
He
clear
had
about that. And
He
she was
was.
like,
yes,
okay, bet.
Yes.
And he was like, wait, what?
mhm,
Yes.
yes,
What you mean?
but because
Okay,
he
bet.
said that, I would have been disappointed in her
Love
if
her.
she had chosen to stay,
Yeah.
knowing that he had already set those boundaries.
I
Yes. He
love
did
And
her
set the
for
she,
that.
boundaries very
yes,
early.
mhm, yes.
And you know
So
what's
I,
interesting?
I applauded her for choosing her career because she knew
Yes, yes.
that is her
He
path. That is what she was
he
meant to
chose
do.
his.
Yes, he
He
did.
chose his.
Yes.
He
He
had to
chose his
leave that
path.
meeting in London and he's like, I'll come back so we can have a day together. He did
That's it.
not like divert from his plans. And he left.
Mm-mm.
And while he was gone, she had this opportunity come up, but it required her to leave right away. She hoped he
Mm-hmm.
might get back in time. And he was rushing to get back. But she was like, I'm going to do this. Now,
Right.
there's a point in the book, and I think Siera and I talked about this, where she asks him if it's always like this because what they have is so explosive and
Mm-hmm.
intense and
Yes.
emotional, and it's like so powerful and meaningful. And he says, and he's lying to her when he says it. He
Yeah.
knows that he's lying
Again.
because he says sometimes. And so
Sometimes.
she has this moment
Mm-hmm.
where she's like, if this is what it feels like sometimes, but to her, it feels like so much more. That moment for me was just kind of one of those moments where you read a moment in a book, and I'm like, if I was an annotator, I would have annotated the out of that moment
Yes.
because it was like I was like, I'm gonna think about that moment 20 years from now and be like, is it always like this? Sometimes, and she's thinking, this is intense. It's not. And then and later in the book, he comes back and he tells her it's not always like this. What we
Yeah.
have is amazing and special. And it's
Amazing.
right around
Mm-hmm.
the time when she sends him away. Oh my God.
Yes.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. He made some missteps. He made
Yeah.
some missteps, and I think from this point we can jump into act part 3. Okay.
mhm, mhm,
So
mhm.
they basically have a beginning, middle, and end. Just like a book is written to their relationship. So they met when she was underage, when she's 22. And then part 3 is 10 years later, y'all.
Mm-hmm.
And Maxim has done what he said he would do. And Lennix has done what we expected her to do.
No, she's done
She
more.
she
She's
is
done
a
more.
powerhouse.
She is
And
the
she
kingmaker.
She is the kingmaker. That the title is about her.
Yes,
The
and I
title is
didn't
about
catch that.
her.
Girl, when you realize that she's referred to as the kingmaker, I'm like,
Yes.
oh my God.
So this
Like,
is a young
woo.
woman who understands the political landscape in and out. It's something, in some ways, she's grown up with from a grassroots standpoint,
Mhm, mhm.
fighting and advocating for her own community.
Yes,
And
yes.
she takes that, this passion that she has, and she amplifies that and turns it into a career. Literally, she's basically a political consultant. Michelle, you know these titles better than I do. Looks like Jackie popped out. But here you have two people that one's almost like a king and the other was a kingmaker. He's at the top of his game for what he does. And then you have Lennix, who's fighting the good fight to put the right people in place, people who care about other people from a political standpoint, that don't forget that they represent the people. So, what did you think about part 3 when we see these two fully fleshed out into who they are as adults?
It's so this book definitely takes you on like an emotional ride because you're all in with this couple the first time you meet them, even if you're looking at him like, don't look at that 17-year-old girl. But the other thing that happens is that when they meet again, I can't remember how long after Amsterdam they meet again, and she turns him away.
Mhm.
And because she's figured out who he is, he had something really traumatic happened. He was in danger, and because of the news, she finds out his real name and sees him with his father, and she feels foolish. So she's carrying that anger that my enemy's son has infiltrated my world, and I let him, and I have all these emotions about him. And so he comes looking for her, and she sends him away. And here we are 10 years later, and the first thing you realize is that neither one of them have, as much as their lives have moved forward and they've met other people and they've been involved with other people and their lives have changed and they've created these worlds for each other, neither one of them has been able to let go of the other person fully. Like emotionally, they're still there. And you as a reader, me as a reader, I'm mad at him because I'm
Yeah.
like, you should have told her the truth. And why have you not told her the truth? Why'd you wait? And he was like, I was going to tell you. I didn't expect that this was going to happen. But at the same time, she feels like everything I've ever lost has been related to this. And I cannot let you cross that threshold.
You're
And I
shaking your
was really
screen. She's so bold. You see that? She's shaking
sorry.
her screen.
I'm
I love
sorry.
it.
I just passionate. And I was so saddened by that, but I felt it and understood it. And just like how
Yeah.
she was willing to leave to maintain the career she was going after and the work she needed to do, I was so proud and impressed by the fact that she was like, you know what? I might have all of these tumultuous feelings inside of me, but I will not let you lie to me and then let you walk back into my life. So 10 years later is a long time to punish somebody. And it's not really a punishment. She sends him
Right.
away. She walks away, not before some I ain't gonna tell you what happened, but that
Right.
moment before she sent him away,
Yeah. Yes.
yeah,
But
sweating just talking about it.
but what I
Woo.
really enjoyed about this part of the story is that there's no easy win for Maxim in this storyline. So so often we read about powerful men like Maxim, like his father, that have money and influence, and literally they can make things happen. And as much as he
Yeah,
tries to do that, Lennix stands on her principles. She stands up to him
love her.
about
Love
what
her.
he isn't going
Love
to
her.
do with her, what she's not going to accept. And
Mm-hmm.
I just literally I applauded her. I was like, where were you when I was 17? Um, because I could have learned a lot from Lennix Hunter, but I did love that there were no easy wins for Maxim when it came to
No,
this relationship. He had
no.
to work for her. And these were things that money and power and status could not buy him with her. Like literally,
Yes.
there's a point in the story where he asked her, "What does a man like me, not a man, but a man like me, have to do to get you back?" And I thought that was so telling of how much he cares for her out of
Girl.
all the things that he could have in the world. He wants Lennix Hunter, and
You just like
she
saying her
has.
name, don't you?
I do. I do. I feel
You
powerful.
like saying her
I
name.
feel powerful. But she tells him no. And I think even some of the men in his world don't fully understand the attraction and
I don't know why
why
she's
Maxim
gorgeous on top of that.
is drawn to her,
She not
especially
okay.
a woman who tells you no. Like, why would a man of power be attracted to a woman who tells him no? And it's subtle, but it's there, in the storyline.
Mhm.
Jackie, welcome back. But we were
Thank
talking
you.
about but yeah, but we're talking about, this part three, and it's 10 years later, and Maxim has
Mhm.
disappointed Lennix, and she holds him accountable for that. And she
Mhm.
doesn't let him off the
Mhm.
hook
Mm-mm.
for the pain and
No.
disappointment that he's
Nope.
brought to her life, to something so beautiful and special
Yeah.
that she shared with
Mhm.
him. And now you have stained it for her.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because the anger
I
with his
like.
father's there. Mm.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Jackie.
I agree with you, see, I like the fact that he had to work for her. She did not make it easy for him to
Mm-hmm.
come back into her life and be a significant part of her life. And, she pointed out every single time he has been misleading, in his dealings with her from the past. And there was
Yes.
no excuse for it, especially knowing how she felt about his father. It was like like she said, he took that decision away from her. And she's not
Yes.
used to that,
Yes.
someone deciding for her. So yes, I was I was happy that he had to work for her. He had to earn her,
Yes. Yes. Yes,
earn
he
her
did.
forgiveness, earn her his place back in her life, a significant
Yes.
place in her life.
Yes,
Yes.
he had to earn her trust.
I have a question for you guys. And this
Mhm.
is a question I've been asking myself. And without saying a lot, there's a point when our couple make a decision about each other in the book in part 3. Did that happen? Did you feel like it was earned, or did it happen a little bit fast for you? I was like, I've been toiling with that for a little bit. It felt a little like they were holding off, and then it happened like really quickly. And I was
Yeah.
curious about what you guys thought about that. I thought it felt a little bit rushed, but then when you understand how the book ends, you're like, oh, I see why I had to be a little bit rushed. But I was curious,
Yeah.
but if you saw that too.
Yeah. It's So I'll just say these two characters, when you're dealing with two very powerful characters who have very dynamic lives, every time they come together, it's pretty explosive. I'll just say that. Okay.
Mhm.
Like, it's almost like, I haven't seen you in a long time, and I want to show you how much I missed you. So
Mhm.
you get that. So the way this book closes for me, I felt like I understand what's driving them. Because these are two very driven people. And guess what? They need to know. Lennix needs to know who's truly in her corner. She really does.
Mm-hmm.
She has her
Mm-hmm.
friend from college, Kimba, but she
Girl,
really needs to
Kimba.
know who's really in her corner. And Maxim, in some ways, is that way as well. And both of
Mm-hmm.
them, in their own way, they really get a rub under their skin if they feel like you're not squarely in their corner.
So
Mm-hmm.
we should
Mm-hmm.
probably
I
at
agree.
this point warn our viewers that this book ends on a bit of a cliffhanger. And we won't tell you at all what that cliffhanger is, but
Mm-mm.
I'm a not lie and tell you that I had been up all night pretty much reading this book, and I finished the book at about 8 or 9 in the morning, and my neighbors might know I finished the book when I
Yeah.
finished it because I had a roar like, so
Yes.
I will
We
warn you now. Get book 2 now.
yes.
Yes.
You're gonna
Okay.
want this
Yes.
book too. So same
Yes.
here. So
Yes.
I listened to this book. I had the book in ebook format and audiobook. So I was listening to the book with my husband because we do our weekend drive. So Mr. Austin and I are listening to this book. And we had gotten down to the last few minutes. We were back at home. It was 10:59 when we got to the ending. And we both was like, what the what? And so I'm sure our neighbors heard us too. And we immediately
Mm-hmm.
downloaded book 2 and started listening at
Listen.
11:01. I think after we calmed down and stopped screaming, we had to go on to book 2 and fell asleep listening to book 2. So yes, I'm so happy that this duet is
Mm-hmm.
published because you're gonna want book 2, which is called The Rebel King.
Just go ahead and buy it before you start
Mm-hmm.
the first one. I mean, granted, we're late to the party. You know, we've had this book. We've been meaning to read this book, and it's one of those books that kind of like
Mm-hmm.
fell through the trap.
Yes.
But wow, all I'm gonna say is like in all over like what I thought my impression is. Wow, like that was
Yes.
an emotional roller
Yes.
coaster. Taking it in the way I took it in, I feel I have so many emotions about this
Yes.
book.
Mm-hmm.
I've met Kennedy Ryan before, and I'm so glad I hadn't read this book when I had met her because I might have made a fool of myself.
I know,
I'm
like
so glad that I
Yes.
was like
That
so blind to her writing the
I
times that I have met her. I was there the night she won her Rita.
yes.
I met her that night, I think, for a second time. I'm so glad I had not read this because I think I would have just.
Been crying, sobbing all over her.
You
yeah,
ever
I
Yes.
had that
know.
moment where you saw how people
Yeah.
acted in front of somebody and you're like, why they act like that? I understand now. I
I understand.
understand
Mm-hmm.
I
now.
understand.
Mm-hmm. I
And now
know.
I'm
Yes.
I
concerned
hope
about the
I
next
get
time
the
I see her.
pleasure of meeting her. I hope
Yes.
the pleasure of meeting Kennedy Ryan because I may fall at her feet. And I will carry a copy of both books with me. And be like,
That was
just
me.
put a
I'm like,
K. Yeah.
if I
Oh,
ever meet her at the Publix grocery
yes.
store, I want to have my books in the car so I can run out and get them so she can sign them, even though we don't live in the same state. But this is the way I've been thinking since I
Mm-hmm.
got these books. I'm like,
It's
just
been
carry them everywhere.
for for me, it's been a long time since I've connected with a book and characters like this. So much so that after book 1 ended, I immediately downloaded book 2 and sat and listened to the entire book in one sitting. In
Yes.
one sitting. I if I went to the bathroom, it went with me. If I was washing dishes,
It
it was
went with
washing dishes with. Yes, if I was cooking dinner, it was cooking dinner with me because I was not going to stop until I learned everything I needed to know about this couple, about those
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
characters,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
just it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had to. So it's been a long time. So Kennedy Ryan, you have a new fan.
Yes.
Look out. I will carry my books with me because if I ever run into you, just be prepared. Be prepared. I'll have a pen
Kennedy.
for you too in case you don't have it.
Kennedy, you complete me. You complete me.
I can't with
If you ever
you.
see this, you complete
Run,
me.
girl, run.
Right. So I will just say this. Even my husband, and we go through a lot of books. My husband's like, where's our book? Where's our book? Every time we get in the car, because we listen together in the car. Where's our book?
Mhm.
And yes, I might get a Lennix Hunter tattoo. Don't judge. But yeah. Yeah.
I'm not gonna go
Me,
that
Lennix.
far, but okay. You and Lennix are
I will
like
say,
this.
I love a
Okay.
female character that has a name that could be a male name. I love that. I won't lie. I love women.
You
that-
do like that. Yes.
Yeah.
I
Yes.
love
Yes.
that. That's one of my. That's catnip for me. Yeah,
Yeah.
Miss Sierra knows that's my catnip. I love women with
is.
male like names that could be males' names.
Yes. So we
Mhm.
thank you so much for joining us for July, well, June/July's Women on Words Backlist Book Club. We read, like, we got so wrapped up in the book, y'all. I didn't even put the banner up, but we read The Kingmaker by Kennedy Ryan, and Jackie and I went on to The Rebel King by Kennedy Ryan.
I
And
highly
Michelle's going to
recommend
get through book 2
you
as
do
well.
too.
Yes. So, Michelle, what
Maybe
are
we
we
need to
reading
come
next
back and
month?
talk about the book too.
Jackie's reading. Jackie picks
Oh,
next month.
that's right. Jackie, what are we reading?
We are reading Snapshot by Cameron King.
Yes, 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 yes. And I believe it's available in audio as well, right? So, yes, so you have
Yes,
the options.
it
So,
is.
if you're
It
crunched
is.
for time, it's available in audio and in digital format. So, and for all you print folks out there, like Michelle, she got a bookcase behind her. So, go and grab Snapshot by Cameron King and join us. I believe it is the third Sunday of the month at 3 p.m. here on the Women on Words Facebook page. Okay, I broadcast some other places, but yeah, please follow us, Women on Words, the Facebook page, so you'll get the alerts for when we're online. Until next time, be amazing, be wild. Bye, ladies. Thanks for joining us.
Bye.